People think they know everything about famous people. They watch the interviews. They follow the stories. They read every headline and every rumor. But the truth is this: the real story is never the one the world sees. The real story is the one hidden in silence. And this one begins with a silence that lasted more than 20 years. Sandra Bullock was always known for her bright energy. People said she could walk into a room and make it warmer without even trying. She worked hard. She laughed easily. She was kind to people who were forgotten by others. But even with all her strength, there were days when she felt alone in ways no one ever noticed. Because fame is not loud pain. Fame is quiet loneliness. Then there was Keanu Reeves, the one everyone called the most humble man in Hollywood. People admired him because he never chased the spotlight. He never acted like a king in a world of ego. He walked like someone who had seen life from the floor, not the stage. He understood grief. He understood silence. And he understood how someday the most powerful thing you can do is protect someone without letting them know you are there. They worked together once, years ago. The world loved them on screen. People wished they would stay together in real life. But life is not a movie. They drifted apart. Different movies, different cities, different years. No drama, no fight, just time doing what time always does. It pulls people apart without noise. Yet something strange happened during all those years. Even when she did not see him, even when she barely spoke to him, Keanu never forgot her. Not because of romance, not because of a secret love story, but because of something much deeper, something he never said out loud, something she never even guessed. The story begins on a quiet morning when Sandra stood in front of her mirror, getting ready for a meeting. She stared at her reflection and whispered to herself, almost like a confession. "I wish people knew how tired I am." She did not mean tired from work. She meant tired from pretending she was always fine. Tired of being strong for everyone else. Tired of never having someone who noticed the small disasters before they became big ones. She did not know that someone had actually noticed. Someone had been noticing for years. The first clue came in a moment she almost ignored. She was walking into a studio one afternoon when a man from the security team gently stepped forward and said, "We already handled it." She did not understand what he meant. She did not ask. She thought it was about paparazzi. She moved on. But that was not what he meant. She just never knew the whole story. Later that week, she received a call from her manager saying a bad rumor that someone tried to start online was gone. Completely gone. Every trace of it deleted before it spread. But she thought it was luck. Or maybe her team working harder than usual. No one told her that someone bigger had stepped in before it ever reached the surface. Still, life moved forward. Movies continued. Interviews continued. Awards came and went. People called her strong. They did not see the nights when she sat awake, wondering why she always had to fight her battles alone. She never realized she had not been alone at all. The second clue appeared one evening at an award rehearsal. A young technician accidentally dropped a folder near her feet. She leaned down to help him pick it up. When she saw the papers inside, she froze. It was a list of names. Not actors, not directors, not staff. It was a list of people she never met. Beside each name was a note. Some said, "potential threat." Some said, "divert early." Some said, "monitor behavior." And on top of the file, in bold letters, were her initials. Not her full name, just her initials. SB, she asked the technician, "What is this?" He panicked. "I am so sorry. I am not supposed to let anyone see that." And before she could ask more, his supervisor came and took the file away. She stood there confused, unease in her chest. Someone was watching her life from a distance. Someone was filtering danger before it reached her. Someone was clearing storms before she ever saw the clouds. But who and why? She could not think of a single person who would do that without telling her. One name came to her mind for 1 second. Then she immediately pushed it away. No, it could not be him. He had his own busy life, his own pain, his own world. She had not even spoken to him for months at a time. Why would he ever do something so huge without saying anything? But that night, the thought did not leave her. It stayed quietly in the back of her mind like a shadow that refused to disappear. The third clue came years later. It was not a file. It was not a rumor. It was a moment so small it would be easy to miss. But sometimes the smallest moment is the loudest truth. She was at a filming location late at night. The set was almost empty. She was tired. Makeup removed, hair tied up. She walked alone toward the parking area. The night was quiet until a man approached her, pretending to ask for an autograph. Something in his eyes felt wrong, cold, heavy. Before she could react, a guard stepped in from nowhere, not one from her team, someone she had never seen before. He took the man away without causing a scene. When she asked who assigned him, the guard only said one sentence. "Your friend wanted you safe," she asked. "Which friend?" The guard looked down and said, "I was told not to say his name." She felt something in her chest. Not fear, not confusion. Something unfamiliar. Something close to being cared for. But she was still in the dark. She did not know how far this mystery went. She did not know how many years of her life were shaped by someone she never saw. But the final clue was different. This was the one she could not ignore. It happened in a private meeting room. She was discussing a role she almost lost because the studio wanted someone younger. She had already accepted it. Age was part of life. But then the director looked at her and said something strange. "The only reason you are still my first choice is because someone once told me that you never deserve to be overlooked." She asked, "Who said that?" And the director smiled, almost embarrassed, and whispered a name she had not heard spoken in connection with her for years. Keanu Reeves. And just like that, everything inside her stopped. Every small mystery lined up in a straight line. Every quiet rescue. Every silent shield. Every problem that disappeared before it touched her. Every time life was lighter than it should have been. She finally saw the truth she never considered. Keanu had been there, not beside her, not in front of her, not holding her hand, but behind her, clearing the path. Unseen, unnamed, uncredited. Not for attention, not for romance, not for fame. For something bigger and purer than all of that. Respect. She sat alone in her car after that meeting, staring out at the city lights. For the first time in years, her own life felt new to her. She had always believed she was fighting her battles alone. But she was wrong. Someone had been fighting them before they even reached her. And now, she wanted answers. Not because she was angry, but because she finally felt something she had not felt in years. She felt seen. She picked up her phone that night. Her hands shook just a little. She typed a message, then erased it. Then typed again. Then erased. Because how do you thank someone for saving pieces of your life you never even knew were in danger? She whispered to herself. You do not know what you mean to me. And this time, she was not talking to the mirror. She was talking to him. But she still did not know the whole truth, and she had no idea what was coming next. Sandra did not sleep that night. Even when she closed her eyes, her mind kept replaying every moment she had once ignored. The deleted rumors, the silent protection, the guard who appeared from nowhere, the studio decisions that suddenly went her way, the director who said Keanu wanted her not to be overlooked. She kept asking herself the same question again and again. Why would he do all that and never tell her? The next morning, she woke up early, long before the sun touched the windows. She made coffee, but she did not drink it. She just sat at the kitchen counter and stared at the steam rising from the cup, thinking about the past 20 years. Thinking about the man who had been part of her life and yet not part of it at all. She remembered their first movie together. The laughs, the long days, the way they trusted each other on set even without knowing each other well. She remembered how easy it had been between them. Then she remembered how life separated them without hurting them. No fight, no anger, just drift, like two rivers that once met but later flowed in different directions. And all this time, he was still there, just not in a way she could see. She tried to tell herself she was overthinking. Maybe she was connecting dots that did not belong together. Maybe it was just coincidence. But deep down, she knew something real was hiding beneath the surface. She finally picked up her phone again. This time, she did not erase the message. She wrote only 3 words. Can we talk? She stared at the screen. Her finger hovered over the send button. After a long breath, she pressed it. The message was delivered, and then nothing. No reply, no typing bubble, no call, just silence. The kind of silence that is not empty but heavy with meaning. She waited an hour, then 3. Then the whole day passed. Nothing. By night, she began doubting herself again. Maybe she should not have sent that message. Maybe she was wrong. Maybe it was someone else helping her all these years. Maybe he would never answer because there was nothing to explain. But then, late that night, her phone lit up. It was not a message. It was a missed call. His name on the screen. Keanu Reeves. She stared at it, frozen. He never called her unexpectedly. They spoke sometimes, but always with purpose and schedule. Not like this, not with silence in between. That single missed call told her something. He knew why she messaged, and he already knew she had found out enough pieces to start asking the real questions. Her phone rang again. This time she answered. His voice was calm, soft, familiar. "Hey, I saw your message." She could not speak for a second. Her throat tightened. Finally, she said, "I want to ask you something, but I do not know how to ask it without sounding crazy." He breathed out slowly. "Then do not worry about sounding crazy. Just ask." She closed her eyes. The truth felt heavy in her chest. "Have you been protecting me all these years without telling me?" There was a long pause, not a silent one, a meaningful one. Then he said, "Can we meet in person?" There it was again. No answer, no denial, no explanation, just a request. She agreed. They chose a place that meant nothing to the public, but something to them. An old rehearsal hall they once used while filming together. Quiet, empty, forgotten by most people, but perfect for a conversation that did not belong to the world. The next afternoon, she walked inside the hall. Sunlight came through dusty windows. The floor still smelled like wood and old paint. She stood there, feeling her heartbeat in her chest. She heard footsteps. She turned. Keanu walked in slowly. Simple clothes. No security. No ego. No mask. Just the same man she had known and yet not known for so long. He gave a small smile, the kind that feels like respect, not performance. "Hi, Sandra." She nodded. "Hi." They stood in silence for a few seconds. Not awkward, just real. She finally spoke. "I found out things I was not supposed to see. People said someone was watching out for me. Someone was clearing problems before I even noticed them. Someone was taking care of things that were not their responsibility." She stopped. Her voice softened, and every thread led back to you. He did not answer. He just looked at her with a quiet, unreadable calm. She continued. "Why? Did you do it without telling me?" He still did not speak. And that silence told her everything. He was not hiding. Because he was guilty. He was quiet because he did not want credit. Her heart trembled a little. "I do not understand," she said. "You never asked for anything. You never told me. You never even hinted. Who does that? Why would you do that unless—" She stopped again, because she suddenly realized the real answer was not simple. This was not about love, not romance, not trying to get close to her. This was something deeper, something rare. Keanu finally spoke. "Sometimes doing the right thing means staying invisible." She looked at him, confused and emotional at the same time. "But why me?" she asked. He smiled gently, the kind of smile only someone honest can give. "Because you always treated people with kindness, even when no one was watching. The world sees your smile. I saw your silence." She did not know what to say. He continued. "You think people do not notice when you are tired, when you are hurt, when you are trying to stay strong, but some people do notice. They just do not always appear in the spotlight." Her eyes slowly softened. She realized he had seen her pain even when she hid it behind jokes and laughter. He looked away slightly. "I do not believe kindness needs applause. That is why I never said anything." She finally spoke in a quiet voice. "You do not know what you mean to me." As soon as she said it, she felt her chest tremble. It was not a dramatic confession. It was not about love. It was a recognition of something greater. She meant, "You changed my life without asking me to know." She meant, "You showed me what invisible loyalty looks like." She meant, "You made the world safer for me without ever asking for thanks." Keanu stood there, listening. But he still did not answer, not yet, and now she wanted the full truth. Who? Told him she needed help. How long he had been doing this. How? Many times he had stepped in silently. How much of her life was shaped by someone. She never saw. She took a small step closer. Keanu, I need to know everything. Not because I doubt you, but because I finally understand I was never alone. And I want to know how far that truth goes. He looked at her. Really looked. Something in his eyes shifted. A door inside. Him opened that had been closed for years. And he said only one sentence. Then, you need to know the first time I stepped in was not for you. She froze. For a moment, she did not understand. What did he mean, not for her? Then who? She stared at him, confused, waiting for the next words, but he did not speak. Not. Yet because what he was about to reveal was not just about Sandra, it was about someone else she never expected, and what she learned next would change everything. She thought she knew, because the truth was not only deeper, it was older, and she had no idea whose life was actually saved first. The words stayed in the air like a weight Sandra was not ready to carry. The first time I stepped in was not for you. She stared at him, confused, trying to understand what he meant. She thought every silent act of protection, every unseen shield, every quiet fix had been because of her, because he saw her struggles, because he respected her, because he did not want the world to hurt someone who spent her life making others smile. But if it did not start with her, then who did it start with? She waited for him to continue. But Keanu did not speak right away. Instead, he walked slowly across the rehearsal room, as if trying to find the right place in the room and in his memory before opening a door he had kept closed for years. Sandra did not move. She let the silence breathe. She knew him well enough to understand that when Keanu stayed quiet, it was never because he had no words. It was because he wanted to choose the right ones. Finally, he turned back to her. "Before I ever helped you," he said in a calm voice, "I helped someone close to you. And you never knew." Sandra felt her heartbeat change. It was not fear. It was shock mixed with something like disbelief. "Who?" she asked softly. Keanu looked at her, and his eyes held something deep. Not pain, not regret, something like respect for a memory. "Your sister." The room suddenly felt smaller. Sandra's eyes widened. Her breath caught halfway. She stepped back without meaning to. "My sister," she repeated slowly, almost whispering. He nodded once. "Yes." Sandra felt her throat tighten. Her sister had passed away years ago. The world never knew much about her. Sandra protected that part of her life the same way Keanu protected others. Quietly. Without headlines. Without sympathy speeches. Her sister had struggled for years. Anxiety, insecurity, fear of not being enough. Sandra had always felt guilty that she could not do more. She was too busy working, too busy surviving fame, too busy fixing herself to fix someone else. And now Keanu stood in front of her, saying he had stepped in for someone she loved before he ever helped her. She could barely speak. "How did you even know her?" she asked. Keanu walked a little closer, but stopped halfway, giving her space. "She wrote to me once," he said. "A long time ago. Not as a fan, not because of my movies. Because she wanted to understand how to stay calm when life kept stealing her peace." Sandra felt a tear forming but held it back. Her sister had always been private, always afraid to ask for help. It was hard to imagine her reaching out to anyone, especially to Keanu. "Why would she write to you?" Sandra asked in a soft voice. Keanu took a slow breath. "Because she heard something in one of my interviews. I talked about losing someone and learning how to live without breaking inside. And she said it helped her feel less alone." Sandra closed her eyes for a moment. She remembered that interview. It went viral. People thought Keanu was being poetic. But now she understood. Someone she loved had actually listened. "I replied," Keanu continued. "And we talked a few times. Not about fame, not about movies. Just about how to stay human in a world that keeps trying to break people quietly." Sandra swallowed hard. "You never told me?" Keanu nodded. "Because it was not my story to tell." There it was again, that same quiet truth. He never took credit for anything that was done out of kindness. He went on. Your sister was stronger than she believed, but she was tired. She felt invisible. And sometimes all a person needs is to know that someone sees them before they disappear. Sandra knew that feeling. She had lived it herself. I tried to help her the only way I knew how, he said, by reminding her that softness is not weakness, that surviving quietly is still surviving, that being gentle in a loud world is a kind of strength. Sandra let out a slow breath. She could picture her sister reading those words, listening to those thoughts, maybe smiling for a moment, maybe crying for a moment. But not alone. But I failed, Sandra whispered. She still... Keanu stepped forward slightly, not to interrupt her, but to keep her from falling into the place she always avoided. You did not fail, he said gently, and neither did she. Sometimes people just run out of strength before the world runs out of weight. The room fell silent. Sandra looked at him again, and her voice broke slightly. So after she passed, you started protecting me. Keanu nodded again, not proud, not emotional, just honest. Because she once told me you were the strongest person she knew, but she was afraid no one was watching your back. So I watched. Those words hit Sandra harder than anything she had heard in years. Her sister, who felt invisible, was worried that Sandra might feel the same someday, and Keanu had promised her otherwise. Without ever telling Sandra, without ever asking for anything in return, Sandra pressed her hand against her mouth. She did not cry loudly. She cried the way strong people cry. Silently, like something inside them dissolves but remains dignified. Keanu did not try to comfort her physically. He just stood there, present, steady, the way he had always been. She finally asked the question she had been holding inside her chest. How many times did you help me without me knowing? Keanu looked down for a second, then back at her. You do not need to know the number. I do, she said firmly, because now it is not just about gratitude. It is about truth. He nodded slowly, respecting her request. The first time was before your big award nomination. Someone tried to block you from getting the role that led to it. I made a call. Sandra blinked. She never knew that. She always thought the producers changed their mind because of her performance. The second time was when a tabloid tried to publish a story about your family. I stopped it before it was printed. She placed her hand on her chest. She never even knew there was a threat. The third time, he hesitated. You were walking alone one night after a set. Someone followed you. I sent someone to walk behind you without you knowing, she shivered. Because now she remembered that night. The street felt too quiet, and yet nothing bad happened. Maybe because someone else was there. And many more after that, he said quietly. She stared at him. This man had done so many things quietly, like a shadow made of loyalty, like protection without ownership, like love without demand. But she suddenly realized something else. You helped me, but you never let me help you, she said. Keanu gave a soft, sad smile. I did not need help. Everyone needs help, she replied. He did not answer, because deep down, she knew something else was still hidden, something he was not telling. Heard not about her, not about her sister, not about the past, but about himself. She watched him carefully and noticed something small but real. He looked tired, too. Not physically, emotionally, like a man who had carried something alone for too long. And now she understood what this story was becoming. It was no longer about the kindness he gave her. It was about the pain he never allowed anyone to see, the silence he wore not as peace, but as armor. The world called him humble, but they did not know what he carried quietly, so Sandra took a step closer. This time for him, you kept me safe for years, she said. But who kept you safe? He looked away, and that was her. Answer. No one. Keanu had protected others for years, but no one ever noticed he might. Need the same, she whispered one sentence. That did not sound like a thank you. It sounded like a promise you are not invisible to me anymore. Keanu looked at her, then really looked like someone who was not used to being seen, like someone who had spent years in the background by choice, but suddenly did not know how to stand in the light. Before Sandra could say anything more, a phone began ringing in his pocket. He checked the screen. His expression changed. Not fear, not shock, something sharper, like a truth he had hoped would never return. he answered quietly. Yes, I understand. I will be there. He ended the call and looked at Sandra with a calm she did not recognize. I have to go. Go where? She asked. He hesitated. Someone else needs help. She stepped toward him. Who? He looked at her with eyes that carried years of unspoken stories. Someone connected to you again. But if I tell you now, you will not be ready. Her heart stopped. Ready for what? He took a slow breath. For the fact that this time, the past is not finished, and the danger is not gone. Sandra felt the room grow still. Whatever she thought the truth was, it was only the surface, the real story. The real reason he stayed in the shadows, the real danger, was still ahead, and this time she would not let him face it alone. Sandra followed him out of the rehearsal hall, but Keanu did not speak. He walked with the same calm steps he always did, yet something had changed in his eyes. The silence between them was no longer gentle. It was heavier now. Like both of them knew the story was moving into a part neither of them could control. When they reached the parking lot, Sandra stopped him before he opened his car door. I am coming with you, she said. Keanu shook his head. No, this is not something you need to step into. She crossed her arms. After everything you have done for me, you really think I will just let you walk away again and pretend I do not know anything? He looked down, not because he felt guilty, because he knew she was right. For years, he had been the one making decisions for her safety. Now it was her turn. I am coming, she repeated, softer but stronger. Keanu held her eyes for a moment, then nodded once. They drove in silence for a while. The city moved around them, unaware of the past unfolding in the backseat of memory. Finally, Sandra spoke. You said someone connected to me needs help. Who is it? Keanu exhaled slowly. A young man, early 20s, quiet, keeps to himself. She frowned. Do I know him? Not directly, Keanu said. But he knows you, and he knows your sister. Sandra felt a pulse inside her chest. My sister, she repeated. How does he know her? Keanu kept his eyes on the road. Because before she passed, she helped him. The same way I helped her. Sandra sat still. She never knew her sister had anyone in her life to support. She always believed she had carried her pain alone. Who is he? Sandra whispered. Keanu answered quietly. Her friend, someone she protected in her own way. Someone she told me to watch if anything ever happened to her. Sandra turned to him slowly. You are protecting him because she asked you to. He nodded. Yes, and because he reminds me of her. Quiet, fragile, hiding emotions behind silence. The car continued moving. Everything Sandra thought she knew felt like a small piece of a much bigger picture. Why does he need help now? She asked. Keanu took a moment before speaking. Because someone is trying to use him. The same way people tried to use your sister when she was struggling. The same kind of voices. The same pressure. And if we do nothing, he will break the same way she did. Sandra's throat tightened. She could almost hear her sister's voice inside her head. Gentle, scared, trying to be brave for everyone else. What is his name? She asked. Noah, Keanu replied. The name felt unfamiliar, yet strangely connected to a past she had not fully understood until today. Where is he now? At a recording studio downtown, Keanu said. Someone offered him something that feels like a chance, but it is a trap. The kind that makes broken people easier to control. Sandra knew that trap. She had seen it in Hollywood. The world offers fame in one hand and takes away your soul with the other. Does he know who you are to him? She asked. Keanu shook his head. No, just like you did not know. That sentence hit her again. So many people had walked through life believing they were alone, when someone was quietly keeping them safe. When they reached the studio, the sky was already shifting into evening colors. Soft orange light fell over the buildings. It was the kind of light that made everything look peaceful, even when something dangerous was about to happen. Keanu parked and turned off the engine. Before we go in, you need to understand something, he said. You may not like the truth when you hear it, and you may blame yourself, but none of it is your fault. Sandra stared at him, confused and tense. Why would I blame myself? Keanu looked at her with quiet honesty. Because Noah is connected to your sister in a way you never knew, and when you hear it, your heart will go back to the past. She felt a chill inside. Tell me, she said. Keanu shook his head slowly. No, you should hear it from him, not from me. They got out of the car and entered the building. The studio lobby was filled with posters, fake smiles, and people pretending success was happiness. Sandra had lived that life long enough to know the truth behind it. They walked to a small corner room. Inside, a young man sat alone at a table, staring at a script. Dark hair, tired eyes, a quiet presence. He did not look surprised when Keanu entered, like he already knew someone would come for him. Keanu spoke gently. Noah, this is Sandra. The young man looked up slowly. His eyes were soft, sensitive, wounded like a heart that had learned to break quietly. He nodded respectfully. I know who she is. His voice was low, almost careful. He stood up slowly, and Sandra saw something familiar in his face. A gentleness that reminded her of her sister. You knew my sister, Sandra said softly. Not as a question, but as a realization. Noah nodded. She helped me when no one else did, he said. She used to say the world was loud, but I did not have to be. Sandra felt her eyes sting. How did you meet her? Noah hesitated, then spoke. We were in the same support group. She never talked about her success. She only talked about her fears. She said being seen by the world does not mean being understood. Sandra's chest felt tight. She remembered her sister saying similar things to her, but she never knew how deep her pain went. She told me something once, Noah continued. She said if anything ever happened to her, there was someone I should trust. She told me his name was Keanu. She said he understands broken things. Keanu stood quietly in the background. He was not trying to take credit. He was letting truth find its voice. Sandra moved closer to Noah. Why are you in danger now? Noah looked down at the script in his hands. Because someone offered me a contract. They said they could make me famous. But they want control. They want to own my voice, my life. They want me to be something I am not. They said if I do not sign, they will release recordings of my worst moments. Sandra took the papers from his hands and read them. It was the same trap she had seen destroy young actors, singers, even directors. Contracts written with promises on the surface and chains underneath. And you were going to sign it? She asked. Noah did not answer right away. I almost did, he admitted. Because I am tired. Because I thought maybe losing myself was easier than fighting. Those words broke something inside. Her, because she suddenly realized the truth. Keanu had been carrying, her sister had once felt that same exhaustion, and now Noah was standing in the same place with the same danger, with the same kind of silence inside him. Sandra slowly sat beside him. You know, she said softly, my sister never asked for fame. She just wanted peace. But the world kept asking her to be stronger than she felt, and she thought breaking quietly meant she failed. Noah looked at her, eyes heavy. She did not fail, Sandra continued. The world failed her. Keanu stepped forward then. And that is why we are here. Because this time no one breaks alone. Noah nodded, but something in his expression shifted. A shadow of guilt crossed his face. There is something else I have to tell you, he said, looking at Sandra. And I do not know how to say it without hurting you. Sandra felt her stomach tighten. What is it? Noah took a deep breath, and for a moment, he looked like someone preparing to tear open a wound that never really healed. Your sister did not just talk about her pain, he said slowly. She talked about you. She said you saved her more times than you knew. Sandra's eyes filled, but Noah continued. But she also said something else. She said she was afraid you would blame yourself for her ending, and she did not want that. Ever. Sandra covered her mouth, trying to hold back a sob. Noah lowered his head. She said if I ever met you, I should tell you this, she said. Tell her it was never her fault. Tell her I loved her more than life, but life was heavier than love. Sandra could not hold the tears anymore. Not the loud kind. The kind that falls slowly, breaking something quietly inside. Keanu placed a hand on her shoulder, not to comfort her, to remind her she was not collapsing alone. But just when the room began to settle into grief, Noah spoke one more sentence, a sentence that changed everything again. "There is one more thing you have not been told," he said. "Something about the night she died." Keanu's face changed immediately. Like he knew what Noah was about to say, and he wished he could stop it. Sandra turned sharply. "What about that night?" Noah hesitated. Fear entered his eyes. Keanu stepped closer. "Noah, you do not have to." But Noah shook his head. "She deserves the truth." He turned to Sandra. "Your sister did not die alone, and the last person who saw her alive was not the one you think." Sandra's heart stopped. Her breathing froze. She stared at Noah, unable to speak. "Who?" she whispered. Noah looked at her, then pointed slowly toward Keanu. The room fell silent after Noah pointed at Keanu. Sandra's eyes did not blink. She looked at Keanu the way someone looks at a door they never expected to open. "You were there," she whispered. "The night my sister died." Keanu did not move. He did not deny it. He did not defend himself. He just stood still, holding the weight of a moment he had carried for years. "Why did no one tell me?" Sandra asked, her voice trembling. Keanu finally spoke, slow and calm. "Because your sister asked me not to." Sandra stepped back. "You were with her in her last moments, and you never told me," she said, almost breaking. "You could have said something, anything." Keanu looked at her with pain that was not loud, but deep. "She did not want you to remember her as someone you failed," he said. "She wanted you to remember her as someone you loved." Sandra shook her head. Her voice cracked. "You let me believe she was alone." "No," Keanu replied quietly. "I made sure she wasn't." Noah watched them silently, understanding that truth sometimes hurts more than lies. Sandra finally asked the question that had lived inside her for years. "What were her last words?" Keanu took a long breath. His voice softened. She said, "Tell Sandra she saved me more times than she knew. Tell her I hope she never feels the kind of tired that makes you disappear." Sandra covered her face. Her body shook, but no sound left her. Grief does not always scream. Sometimes it collapses quietly. Keanu wanted to move closer, but he didn't, because she needed space to break without someone trying to fix her. Then Sandra lowered her hands and looked at him again, but this time with something new in her eyes. "Not anger, not blame something else. You held all this for years," she said. "The truth, the pain, the weight, and you still protected me." Keanu stayed silent. "Why?" she asked. "Why carry someone else's burden when it was not yours?" Keanu finally answered. "Because she asked me to look after the strongest person she knew. And because I understood what it feels like to lose someone and still have to keep living." Before Sandra could respond, Keanu's phone vibrated again. He checked the screen. His expression darkened. "They found Noah," he said. Noah tensed. "Who?" Keanu looked at both of them. "The people behind the contract. They know he refused, and they are not going to disappear quietly." Sandra wiped her face. "What do we do now?" Keanu looked at her with a calm that came from experience, not confidence. "Now," he said, "we stop running from the past, and we face the people who built it." Sandra nodded slowly. The grief was still there. The truth was still heavy, but something new began to rise behind her pain strength. Not the loud kind, the kind you earn after. Breaking, and now she was ready. But she had no idea who was really behind the trap, or how deep the past went, or how close danger already was, because the next person to enter this story would change everything again, and this time, someone was not coming to save them. Someone was coming to silence them. They left the studio that night with no time to process their grief. Danger was already moving. Noah's phone was flooded with unknown calls, threats disguised as contracts. Someone wanted control, and now they knew he was not alone. Keanu made one call, not to a lawyer, not to a manager, to someone who owed him a favor from years ago. Within an hour, the real story behind the contract was exposed. A company known for trapping vulnerable talent, forcing them into silence, then profiting from their collapse. But this time, they picked the wrong people. Keanu dealt with the company quietly, using the same invisible way he always solved things. Not through violence, not through fame, through truth and evidence. By morning, the contract was canceled, the threats were traced, and Noah was finally safe. But safety was not the real ending. He sat across from Sandra in a quiet cafe, trembling with relief. "Why did you even care about me?" Noah asked softly. "I am not family. I am not famous," Sandra smiled through tired eyes. "Because someone cared about you before you believed you mattered," she said. "And that is enough." Noah looked at Keanu. "You could have just walked away." Keanu shook his head. "People do not heal by being abandoned," he said. "They heal when someone stays." For a long moment, no one spoke. They were three people connected not by blood, not by fame, but by shared wounds and quiet loyalty. Noah finally asked the question that lingered in the air. "Will it ever stop hurting?" Keanu answered gently. "Yes, not all at once. But one day, the weight will not feel like a punishment. It will feel like memory, and you will be able to walk with it without falling." Sandra looked at Keanu then, really seeing him, not as the protector, not as the quiet legend, but as someone who carried pain the same way he carried kindness. "You spent years protecting everyone else," she said. "But who protects you?" Keanu smiled, almost like he did not expect anyone to ever ask that. "Kindness protects me," he replied. "The kind that does not need to be seen." And in that moment, Sandra finally understood the full truth. Keanu never wanted credit, never wanted praise, never wanted to be called a hero. He just believed this simple thing. If you can make the world softer for one person, even silently, you have already changed it. Before they left, Sandra placed her hand on his arm and whispered the same words she once said in confusion, but now with full meaning. "You do not know what you mean to me?" Keanu finally answered. "Not with mystery, not with silence, but with truth." "I never needed you to know," he said. "I only needed you to live." That was the final reveal. His kindness was never about being remembered. It was about making sure others survived, and because of that, Sandra found peace, Noah found safety, and her sister's story finally ended in light. Not silence, not with applause, not with headlines, but with the quiet victory of lives saved without anyone watching. The world never saw his kindness, but the people he saved carried it forever.